What kind of man accumulates 40 luxury watches while the doctors in his country earn $5 a month? What type of leader builds underground vaults filled with gold while mothers give birth in hospital hallways without anesthesia? How many millions can be hidden in secret accounts when your official salary barely reaches $500 a month? On January 3rd, 2026, when American Special Forces burst into the properties of Nicolás Maduro, what they discovered was not simply corruption. It was the most obscene testimony of how a dictator can live in excessive opulence while his nation agonizes. What you will see today is not a political analysis. It is the detailed inventory of absolute decadence. It is the X-ray of the most shameful looting of our era. How many tons of gold can a president hide in secret bunkers while entire hospitals operate without electricity? How many private yachts moored in European ports while millions flee on foot because they don't have money, even for a bus ticket? How many ghost mansions distributed across tax havens when your people rummage through trash cans to feed their children? Today you will discover answers that will forever change your understanding of how far criminal ambition, disguised as government, can go. I am going to reveal to you 5 dimensions of the grotesque excess that Maduro cultivated while Venezuela collapsed. First, the personal luxury arsenal he accumulated in fortified residences, collections of objects so expensive that their total value could have saved entire healthcare systems, jewelry whose price exceeded annual hospital budgets. Second, the hidden properties scattered around the world, villas on Mediterranean coasts while in Venezuela even drinking water was scarce, luxury apartments in financial capitals bought with phantom money. Third, the clandestine financial networks, hundreds of accounts in opaque jurisdictions that moved fortunes while the Venezuelan minimum wage plummeted to inhumane levels, million-dollar transfers executed from presidential offices. Fourth, the daily imperial lifestyle, private jets for personal trips paid with public funds, wine cellars with bottles that cost more than what a Venezuelan family earned in years. And fifth, the exact inventory drawn up during his capture, the opened safes, the secret tunnels explored, the seized documents that prove each criminal transaction. I will alert you when we reach each revelation. If you leave before the end, you miss the fifth. And believe me, the fifth contains the real numbers of exactly how much this man stole while Venezuela became synonymous with exodus and despair. Subscribe if you want to understand how modern kleptocrats operate, because this investigation has official documentation, has leaked photographs, has sworn statements from protected witnesses, and has something that Maduro never imagined would become public: the complete catalogue of his limitless greed. Let us begin. 2 in the morning on January 3rd, 2026, Venezuelan time. 150 American military aircraft cross the national airspace. Delta Force penetrates Fuerte Tiuna, the military complex that Maduro turned into his last stronghold. What they found there exceeds any expectation of excess. It was not merely an armored presidential facility. It was a temple dedicated to institutionalized theft, a sanctuary built to celebrate how a single individual can exist as a monarch while multitudes perish in misery. The underground complex at Fuerte Tiuna was a masterpiece of Cuban engineering, financed with resources that should have been destined for civilian infrastructure. 30-centimeter reinforced steel walls, evacuation corridors extending more than 2 kilometers connecting strategic exits throughout Caracas, atmospheric purification systems designed to resist chemical, biological, and radiological threats, autonomous generating plants capable of functioning for decades without depending on external networks, food deposits sized to sustain 50 people for 10 years. All this while entire neighborhoods of the capital suffered half-day blackouts and families cooked on improvised bonfires due to the absence of domestic gas. But the true revelation was not in the defensive architecture of the bunker. It was in what Maduro stored in his private chambers. Documents from the United States Department of the Treasury, leaked to independent investigators, confirmed that the forensic teams discovered gold ingots stored in armored underground compartments. These were not small personal reserves. They were strategic volumes, metric tons of Venezuelan gold that never left national territory, that never appeared in official records of the central bank, that simply evaporated from state inventories to materialize in the private basement of the dictator. The exact volume, auditors continue to verify figures. Sources linked to the judicial process mention amounts between 15 and 20 metric tons of pure gold. Calculated at current international market values, we are talking about more than $1 billion. $1 billion in gold accumulated clandestinely, while Venezuela recorded world record hyperinflation. While citizens transported banknotes in sacks because money lost value every hour. While wages disintegrated weekly and acquiring a chicken represented an unattainable event for entire families. The operatives also found physical cash. United States dollars, euros, Swiss francs, British pounds, yuan. Bundles of banknotes packaged in brand-name suitcases that remained sealed. New currency, freshly minted, that entered Venezuela through apparently legitimate commercial transactions and ended up hidden in Maduro's personal closets. A member of the federal team that participated in the search described the situation as unreal. There was such a volume of cash that they required extra vehicles for the transfer. We are talking about tens of millions literally stored as if they were common belongings. Then came the jewelry. Diamond necklaces, golden bracelets with emerald inlays, rings with gems the size of hazelnuts, high horology watches that never appeared in any official image. Limited edition Rolex Daytona valued at over $100,000 per unit. Patek Philippe Grand complications exceeding $500,000. Audemar's Piguet, Royal Oak manufactured in 18-karat gold. Richard Mille with titanium mechanisms surpassing $1 million per piece. Maduro possessed more than 40 luxury chronometers in his private collection. 40 watches while Venezuelan doctors received $5 a month. 40 watches while teachers resigned en masse because they could not afford transportation to their schools. The forensic experts also catalogued clothing, not ordinary clothing. Tailored suits made to measure by private tailoring houses in Milan and Rome. Each outfit cost between $10,000 and $20,000. Maduro hoarded more than 100 such suits. Egyptian silk shirts made by exclusive London workshops. Italian leather footwear hand-stitched that he wore once before discarding. Designer ties whose price exceeded the monthly income of a Venezuelan university professor. Hermès belts, Cartier cufflinks, Brunello Cucinelli pocket squares. Everything preserved in climate-controlled dressing rooms with regulated temperature and humidity to protect fabrics. All this while millions of Venezuelans wore the same garments for years because renewing their wardrobe was literally impossible. Celia Flores maintained similar standards. Her jewelry arsenal was even more impressive. Mikimoto pearl necklaces valued at $200,000 each piece. Cartier white gold diamond bracelets. Engagement rings she never wore but acquired anyway. Van Cleef and Arpels earrings with Burmese rubies. Antique brooches that belonged to European aristocratic lineages. Her handbag collection occupied an entire room. Hermès Birkin, in all available color variants. Each bag cost between $30,000 and $300,000, depending on material and exclusivity. She possessed more than 60 Birkins. 60 bags that together exceeded $5 million. Chanel Classic Flap, Louis Vuitton limited editions, Dior Lady Dior manufactured in exotic skins, all displayed on illuminated shelves like a museum installation. Celia's footwear filled another entire room. Christian Louboutin, Manolo Blahnik, Jimmy Choo, Valentino. Shoes never worn. Shoes bought simply because it was possible. More than 200 pairs of designer footwear, while Venezuelan women walked with destroyed sandals because a new pair equaled 3 months of salary. But what was truly repugnant was not the objects themselves. It was the brutal contrast. While Maduro accumulated million-dollar watches, Venezuelan hospitals operated without surgical gloves. While Cilia bought $300,000 bags, Venezuelan mothers gave birth in hospital hallways without anesthesia. While they savored imported lobster and $1,000 per bottle French wine, 7 million Venezuelans abandoned the country on foot because they lacked even money for basic transportation. The federal teams also discovered something unexpected. Artworks, original paintings by Venezuelan and Latin American artists valued in the millions. Sculptures that disappeared from national museums during blackouts and protests. Pre-Columbian archaeological pieces that technically constituted Venezuelan cultural heritage, but that Maduro transferred to his private residence. Stolen art displayed on the walls of a bunker, while national museums closed due to budget deficits and public universities could not pay for electricity. Maduro's wine cellar was legendary among his inner circle. Chateau Petrus bottles reaching $10,000 each. Romanée Conti at prices of $20,000. Wines that international collectors wait years to obtain. Maduro consumed them at private dinners while negotiating the distribution of state positions. The cellar housed more than 2,000 bottles. It was climate-controlled, had automatic rotation systems, had permanent armed custody. All that squandering, all that waste occurring literally underground while above, on Caracas avenues, people rummaged through garbage for food. The investigators found receipts, purchase records from luxury boutiques in Paris, Milan, Madrid, Miami. Purchases totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars in single days. Bank transfers to European fashion houses. Payments to Swiss jewelers. Shipments of luxury products directly to the presidential palace using Venezuelan state flights. The people financed the fuel for those planes. The people paid the salaries of the crews. The people sustained the maintenance of the aircraft. And Maduro used those resources to import Italian footwear and Swiss chronometers, while Venezuelan pharmacies lacked aspirin. Now, we reach the second revelation, the ghost properties. The real estate that never appeared in any official declaration, but that American prosecutors are tracking at this very moment. Nicolás Maduro officially received $500 monthly as Venezuelan president. That was his declared salary, $500 a month. With that income, according to public documentation, he should have maintained austerity equivalent to any mid-ranking official. But reality diverged completely. Investigators from the Department of the Treasury identified at least 17 real estate properties linked directly or indirectly to Maduro, Cilia Flores, and their immediate family circle. 17 properties scattered across 6 different countries. None reported in official patrimonial declarations. The first property that captured investigative attention was a mansion in the Dominican Republic. Located in Cap Carney, the most exclusive residential area of the Caribbean, the property offers direct ocean views, 4 main bedrooms, overflow pool, private dock, and heliport. The estimated market value exceeds $5 million. It is registered under the name of a shell company called Inversiones Caribe del Este, whose sole shareholder is a Dominican lawyer who worked for years as legal advisor to Venezuelan state-controlled companies. When journalists attempted to contact him, his office abruptly closed and he vanished. The second property is in Panama. It is a luxury apartment on the 42nd floor of a tower in Punta Pacifica, the most expensive neighborhood in Panama City. It has 300 square meters, 3 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a terrace with jacuzzi and panoramic view of the Pacific. The apartment was acquired in 2015 for $2,800,000. The registered buyer was an offshore company in the British Virgin Islands. The purchase documents were signed by a Panamanian frontman who subsequently admitted to local investigators that he acted on behalf of third parties. He never revealed the identities of those third parties, but the financial transfers that financed the acquisition came from Venezuelan accounts linked to the government. The third property is a villa in Turkey. Located in Bodrum, an elite resort on the Aegean coast where European and Arab aristocracy summers. The villa has 6 bedrooms, a heated pool, private gymnasium, sauna, tennis court, and direct access to a private beach. It was purchased in 2017 for €4 million. The registered buyer was a Turkish businessman with million-dollar contracts with PDVSA, the Venezuelan state oil company. When Turkish journalists investigated the transaction, they discovered that the businessman never visited the property. It was being managed by a real estate agency that received instructions directly from Caracas. The fourth property is an apartment in Madrid. Located in the Salamanca neighborhood, one of the most expensive areas of Spain, the apartment has 250 square meters, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and views of the Retiro. It was purchased in 2014 for €1,600,000. The official buyer was a Spanish limited company whose partners were 2 Venezuelans residing in Madrid. One was Celia Flores's nephew, the other a former official of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who worked directly under Maduro's orders when he was foreign minister. Investigators also detected evidence of properties in Mexico, Colombia, and the United States. In Miami specifically, they identified 3 apartments in Sunny Isles Beach, an area known for housing Venezuelan money. The 3 apartments were acquired between 2012 and 2016 for a total of $6 million. They are registered under the name of offshore companies in Panama and the Cayman Islands. The bank transfers that paid for those apartments came from accounts in Swiss banks, now frozen by order of American authorities. But properties are not the only thing Maduro hid. There are also the vehicles. Not just any vehicle. We are talking about a luxury automobile collection that a petroleum sheikh would envy. According to testimony from former regime officials who decided to cooperate with American prosecutors, Maduro possessed at least 12 high-end vehicles stored in private Caracas garages. Armored Mercedes-Benz S-Class costing more than $200,000 per unit. BMW Series 7 with customized finishes. Range Rover Autobiography costing more than $150,000. And the centerpiece, a Rolls-Royce Phantom valued at more than $500,000 that Maduro used for private movements outside official coverage. All those vehicles were imported to Venezuela using customs exemptions destined for diplomatic equipment. The Venezuelan people paid the taxes that should have been collected. The Venezuelan people subsidized the gasoline those vehicles consumed, and Maduro drove them through Caracas, while the majority of Venezuelans could not acquire spare parts to keep 20-year-old vehicles running. Private jets constitute another separate chapter. Maduro did not travel on commercial flights, not even on official government aircraft available for presidential use. No, Maduro rented private jets from international companies for personal trips and paid for them with public money disguised in consulting service contracts. A private Caracas-Havana flight on a Gulfstream G650 jet costs approximately $100,000. Maduro made that journey dozens of times. Each time the Venezuelan state paid the bill. Each time that money left coffers that should have been used to acquire medicines or food. Investigators also traced yachts, luxury vessels moored in Mediterranean ports that supposedly belonged to Venezuelan businessmen close to the regime. but that Maduro and his family used for private vacations. One of those yachts, a 30-meter Princess 88, was photographed in Saint-Tropez in 2018 with Celia Flores on board. The yacht had 4 cabins, a deck jacuzzi, latest generation entertainment system, and a crew of 8. The rental cost of such a yacht exceeds $100,000 per week. But Maduro did not rent it. According to leaked banking documents, that yacht was the property of an offshore company in Malta, whose ultimate beneficiary was a frontman linked to the Venezuelan government. All this while Venezuela disintegrated, while public hospitals lacked running water, while schools closed because they could not pay teachers, while millions of people abandoned the country because remaining meant dying of hunger. Now we reach the third revelation, the frozen bank accounts. The numbers that American prosecutors are tracking at this moment, and that reveal the real magnitude of the pillaging. On January 3, 2026, the same day of Maduro's capture, the United States Department of the Treasury issued freezing orders against more than 200 bank accounts distributed across 18 countries. 200 accounts linked directly or indirectly to Nicolás Maduro, Celia Flores, their close relatives, and a network of front men that operated for more than a decade to hide stolen money. The total amount frozen is still being calculated, but sources close to the investigation speak of figures exceeding $2 billion. $2 billion hidden in banks in Switzerland, Andorra, Panama, the Cayman Islands, the British Virgin Islands, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Singapore, and Hong Kong. The most voluminous account identified so far is in a private Swiss bank in Geneva. It was opened in 2014 under the name of a Liechtenstein Foundation, whose ultimate beneficiary was a Panamanian offshore company controlled by a Venezuelan lawyer who worked as Maduro's legal advisor for years. The account had a balance of $320 million when it was frozen. $320 million in a single account, while Venezuela recorded the highest infant mortality rate in Latin America. Investigators discovered that the money arrived at that account through a complex network of international transfers. It first left Venezuela as payment for fictitious consulting services invoiced by phantom companies. Then it transited through correspondent banks in Panama and Miami. Afterwards, it was transferred to intermediate accounts in the Cayman Islands. Finally, it arrived in Switzerland completely laundered, completely clean, impossible to trace without years of forensic financial investigation. Another significant account was located in Andorra. Andorra is a tax haven hidden between Spain and France, where private banking operates with levels of secrecy that make Switzerland appear transparent. The account was under the name of an Andorran anonymous company, whose sole shareholder was a Spanish citizen who never visited Venezuela but received direct instructions from Caracas on how to manage the money. The account contained $180 million. The money arrived there through transfers from Venezuelan companies that supposedly exported food, but that in reality exported nothing. They were false invoices used to legally extract dollars from the country. In Panama, investigators identified 23 different accounts linked to Maduro's circle. Some were under the name of offshore companies, others under the name of Panamanian citizens acting as front men. Together, they totaled more than $400 million. The money left Venezuela using the CADIV system, an exchange control mechanism that supposedly served to allow Venezuelan businessmen to buy dollars at the official price to import products. But in practice, CADIV became the most efficient theft machinery Venezuela ever knew. Businessmen aligned with the regime applied for dollars to import food or medicines that never arrived. They received the dollars at subsidized prices. They transferred them to accounts abroad, and the Venezuelan state lost billions that afterwards ended up in the pockets of Maduro and his circle. Prosecutors also found accounts in the British Virgin Islands. The BVI, as they are known, are the favorite offshore paradise of dictators and financial criminals because they allow creating companies without revealing who is behind them. Maduro and his circle created more than 50 offshore companies in the BVI between 2010 and 2020. Each company had bank accounts. Each account received million-dollar transfers from Venezuela. When British investigators finally accessed those records under American pressure, they discovered that the accounts totaled more than $600 million. But the most impactful finding occurred in Singapore. Singapore is one of the most sophisticated financial centers on the planet. Its banking system is practically impenetrable without official cooperation. For years, it functioned as the perfect refuge for money from Asian and Latin American dictators. Investigators discovered that Maduro opened accounts in 3 private banks in Singapore between 2015 and 2019. The accounts were under the name of companies registered in Hong Kong and Samoa. Together, they contained more than $400 million. The money arrived there from China, using fraudulent oil contracts between PDVSA and phantom Chinese companies. American prosecutors also traced investments. Maduro did not only keep money in bank accounts, he invested it. He had shares in European investment funds. He had corporate bonds issued by American technology companies. He had stakes in hedge funds operating from the Cayman Islands, all purchased with money stolen from the Venezuelan people, all generating returns that increased his fortune while Venezuela sank into misery. A former official of the Central Bank of Venezuela, who decided to cooperate with American prosecutors, revealed something chilling. According to his testimony, just between 2013 and 2018, more than $5 billion left Venezuela illegally using mechanisms controlled directly by Maduro and his closest circle. $5 billion in 5 years, $1 billion annually, almost $3 million daily. While the Venezuelan minimum wage fell below $5 a month, investigators also discovered that Maduro used cryptocurrencies to move money, specifically Bitcoin and Ethereum. Between 2017 and 2020, the Venezuelan regime created its own official cryptocurrency called the Petro, supposedly backed by national oil reserves. It was a total failure. Nobody used it. Nobody accepted it. But it served another purpose. It served to allow regime officials to convert worthless believers into real cryptocurrencies that they afterwards exchanged for dollars on international exchanges. American prosecutors traced cryptocurrency transactions linked to Maduro worth more than $100 million. All that money was stolen. It was not legally earned. It was not inherited. It was not the product of legitimate investments. It was stolen from the Venezuelan people. Every dollar in those accounts represents food that did not reach a hospital, medicines that were not purchased, salaries that were not paid, schools that were not built, a future that did not exist. Now we reach the 4th revelation, Maduro's personal collection. The luxury objects he accumulated while millions of Venezuelans abandoned the country. When federal agents searched Maduro's private residences on January 3, 2026, they found something they documented meticulously. A collection of luxury objects so obscene, so disproportionate, so grotesquely unnecessary that even veteran investigators who had witnessed the excess of drug traffickers and mafia members were shocked. This was not the collection of a luxury lover. It was the pathological accumulation of a kleptocrat who stole because he could, who bought because he could, who accumulated without limit while his people died without limit. Maduro's watch collection occupied 3 special display cases with LED lighting and humidity control. Each display case contained between 15 and 20 watches. The majority were brands that ordinary people have never heard of because they are so far beyond the reach of any normal individual that they are not even publicly advertised. The Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime, the most expensive watch in the world, valued at $31 million. Maduro possessed one. It was purchased at a private auction in Geneva in 2018. The payment was executed through a Swiss intermediary who received the money from a Panamanian account controlled by Venezuelan frontmen. Richard Mille RM 56-02. Sapphire, a completely transparent watch manufactured in sapphire with a visible tourbillon movement. It cost more than $2 million. Maduro possessed two. Jacob & Co. Billionaire Watch, a watch covered with 260 carats of emerald diamonds costing $18 million. Maduro wore it exactly once, at a private dinner in 2019, and afterwards stored it in the display case. Audemars Piguet, Royal Oak, Grande Complication, in rose gold, valued at $800,000. Maduro possessed three different variations. Rolex Daytona, Paul Newman, a vintage watch that reached prices of $17 million at auction. Maduro possessed one authentic piece purchased from a private European collector. The list continues. Vacheron Constantin Tour de Lille, valued at $1,500,000. Hublot Big Bang Diamond, completely covered in diamonds, valued at $5 million. Grubel Force, GMT, Earth, a watch with an incorporated three-dimensional globe costing $700,000. A. Lange and Söhne Grand Complication, valued at $2,800,000. FP. Journe Tourbillon, Souverain in platinum, valued at $400,000. 43 watches in total. The combined value of the collection exceeds $80 million. $80 million in watches, while Venezuelan doctors received $5 a month. $80 million that could have purchased medicines for the entire Venezuelan hospital system for 1 year. $80 million that could have paid the salaries of 50,000 teachers for 2 years. $80 million spent on objects that only served to measure time, while millions of Venezuelans felt time running out because they had nothing to eat. But the watches were only the beginning. Celia Flores' jewelry collection proved even more impressive and more obscene. Investigators found more than 200 pieces of high-end jewelry stored in climate-controlled safes. Cartier diamond necklaces valued at more than $500,000 each. Bulgari white gold bracelets with Colombian emeralds. Van Cleef and Arpels rings with 5-carat diamonds. Harry Winston earrings with Burmese sapphires. Tiffany & Company brooches from the Blue Book collection. A single piece particularly caught the attention of investigators. A Mikimoto pearl necklace known as the Queen of the Caribbean. It was manufactured specifically for Celia Flores by private commission in 2016. It contains 120 perfectly spherical pearls, each exceeding 12 millimeters in diameter, with a white gold clasp inlaid with diamonds and emeralds. The necklace was valued by experts at more than $1,200,000. Celia wore it exactly twice, both times at private events outside Venezuela, where official cameras were not present. Afterwards, she stored it with the rest of her collection. Celia's bags filled an entire room the size of a standard bedroom. Illuminated shelves displayed each bag as if it were a museum piece. Hermes Birkin in all available colors and materials. Black Perosa's crocodile Birkin, the most expensive in the world, valued at $300,000. Rose gold Birkin with 24-carat gold hardware, valued at $250,000. Nilo crocodile Himalaya Birkin with gradient dyeing and inlaid diamonds, valued at $500,000. Chanel classic flap in limited editions that never reached public stores. Louis Vuitton tribute patchwork, one of the brand's most expensive bags, valued at $45,000. Dior Lady Dior in crocodile with gold details, valued at $30,000. Fendi Peekaboo in python skin, valued at $20,000. Valentino Rockstud Limited Edition, 68 bags in total. The combined value exceeds $12 million. 12 million in bags while Venezuelan women walked kilometers searching for food for their children. 12 million that could have built 20 schools. 12 million spent on objects that only served to carry other luxury objects. Celia's shoes occupied another entire room. More than 300 pairs of designer footwear organized by brand and color. Christian Louboutin in every imaginable style. Manolo Blahnik with Swarovski crystal inlays. Jimmy Choo limited edition. Valentino Rockstud in 5 different colors. Giuseppe Zanotti with solid gold heels. Roger Vivier with precious stone buckles. Each pair cost between $1,000 and $5,000. The total value of the collection exceeded $1 million. And then there was the clothing. Investigators found more than 200 made-to-measure suits for Maduro. We are not talking about suits acquired at department stores. We are talking about suits sewn specifically to his body by private tailors from the most exclusive fashion houses in Europe. Brioni, Chiton, Cesare Attolini, Zegna Couture. Each suit cost between $10,000 and $20,000. Egyptian silk shirts manufactured by Charvet in Paris. Each shirt cost more than $1,000. Limited edition Hermès ties. John Lobb shoes handmade in London. Celia possessed more than 150 designer dresses. Chanel haute couture valued at $50,000 each. Dior Gala dresses costing between $30,000 and $80,000. Valentino, Versace, Gucci, Prada, all stored in climate-controlled dressing rooms with special velvet-lined hangers to avoid damaging the fabrics. Investigators also found something particularly obscene, a fur coat collection. Russian mink, chinchilla, Arctic fox, astrakhan. More than 30 coats valued in total at $2 million. Coats for cold weather in a tropical country where it is never cold. Coats that Celia only wore when traveling to Europe in winter. Coats purchased with stolen money while millions of Venezuelans did not even have a sheet to cover themselves at night. Maduro's wine cellar contained more than 2,000 bottles. They were not ordinary wines. They were bottles that private collectors wait decades to obtain. Chateau Petrus, 1982, considered one of the best wines of the 20th century, valued at $10,000 per bottle. Maduro possessed 12 bottles. Romane Conti, 1990, the most expensive wine in the world, reaching prices of $20,000 per bottle. Maduro possessed 8 bottles. Chateau Lafite Rothschild, 1869, a historic bottle valued at more than $100,000. Maduro possessed 1. The complete wine collection was valued at more than $5 million. $5 million in alcohol while Venezuelans died from lack of drinking water. Investigators also found Cuban cigars. Not just any cigar. Cohiba Bahique, the most exclusive and expensive cigar in the world. Each box of 25 cigars cost more than $10,000. Maduro possessed 50 boxes. Trinidad Fundadores, cigars manufactured exclusively for Fidel Castro, that were afterwards commercialized in very limited editions. Maduro possessed 20 boxes. The total value of the cigar collection exceeded $1 million. And then there were the spirits. Macallan's 60-year-old, whiskey valued at $30,000 per bottle. Maduro possessed 6 bottles. Louis XIII, Remy Martin Black Pearl Cognac valued at $100,000 per bottle. Maduro possessed 3. Russo Baltique vodka, covered in gold with diamond inlays valued at $1,300,000 per bottle. Maduro possessed 1 that he never opened. All these objects were photographed, catalogued, documented. and now form part of the evidence that American prosecutors will present in trial. Every watch, every bag, every bottle of wine, every suit, every shoe represents one more proof of the systematic looting that Maduro and Celia Flores executed for more than a decade. Now we reach the fifth and final revelation. What they found in his residences on the day of the capture. The complete inventory that federal agents drew up while Maduro and Celia Flores were handcuffed. On January 3, 2026, when soldiers of Delta Force burst into Fuerte Tiuna, they did not only capture Maduro and Celia Flores, they also secured the scene. They sealed all the rooms, they blocked all the exits, and they began the most exhaustive forensic documentation process ever carried out against a foreign head of state in modern American history. The Fuerte Tiuna bunker had 7 underground levels. The first 3 were common areas: meeting rooms, dining halls, industrial kitchens, dormitories for bodyguards. But the 4 lower levels were private. Only Maduro, Celia, and a circle of fewer than 10 people had access. Everything was there. On the 4th level, they found the gold vaults. 3 reinforced rooms with 30-centimeter thick steel doors. Inside were safes stacked from floor to ceiling. Each safe contained 1 kilo bars of pure gold. The agents began to count. It took 6 hours. In the end, the inventory registered 17 metric tons of physical gold, valued at more than $1.1 billion at the market price of the moment. But the gold was not alone. In the same room, they found ancient coins, Venezuelan gold coins from the colonial era, Spanish coins from the 17th century, coins that belonged to the national historical heritage, but that Maduro transferred to his private bunker. The historical value of those coins is incalculable. Some were unique, pieces that Venezuelan museums had been searching for decades without knowing they were hidden underground in the dictator's personal vault. On the 5th level, they found Maduro's and Celia's private rooms. Master bedroom with king-size bed, 3,000 thread-count Egyptian silk sheets, pillows filled with goose feathers imported from Hungary, bathroom with Italian marble bathtub, 24-karat gold faucets, Japanese Toto Neorest toilet with remote control costing $10,000, climate-controlled dressing rooms where the suits, shoes, bags and jewelry were stored. Investigators also found something disturbing: a fully equipped private pharmacy with medicines that did not exist in any Venezuelan hospital. Insulin, latest generation antibiotics, antivirals, opioid analgesics, cancer medications. Everything stored in special refrigerators with controlled temperature. While Venezuelan hospitals lacked aspirin, Maduro had sufficient medicines to treat 100 people for years. On the 6th level, they found the communications center, latest generation computers with encrypted satellite connections, encrypted telephones, servers storing classified documents. Investigators confiscated all the equipment. Now, FBI technicians analyze every file, every email, every document stored on those servers. According to sources close to the investigation, what they are finding is devastating. Conversations between Maduro and leaders of international criminal organizations, documented bank transfers, written orders that directly link Maduro to drug trafficking operations. On the 7th level, the deepest of the bunker, they found something nobody expected: a private cinema with capacity for 20 people. Latest generation projection screen, Dolby Atmos surround sound system, reclining Italian leather seats. Maduro possessed a collection of more than 500 films in 4K Blu-ray format. While Venezuelan cinemas closed because there was no electricity, Maduro watched Hollywood films in his private bunker with the best available technology. Agents also found cash hidden in unsuspected places, $100 bills inside shoeboxes, euros inside hollowed-out books, Swiss francs rolled inside toothpaste tubes, Canadian dollars inside empty champagne bottles. It seemed obsessive, compulsive, as if Maduro did not trust even his own vaults and needed to hide money everywhere. In total, agents counted more than $12 million in cash distributed throughout the bunker. 12 million in physical banknotes that were never deposited in any bank, that never appeared in any declaration, that were simply there, hidden, waiting. Investigators also confiscated documents, boxes and boxes of documents, oil contracts between PDVSA and phantom Chinese companies, false import invoices used to extract dollars from Venezuela, secret agreements with the Colombian FARC, bank transfers personally signed by Maduro, everything documented, everything kept, as if Maduro believed he would never be captured and that those papers would never see the light. One of the most impactful documents was an agreement signed in 2017 between Maduro and leaders of the Colombian ELN. According to the document, the ELN would receive territorial protection in Venezuela in exchange for sharing drug trafficking profits. The document bears Maduro's signature. It has official seals. It is direct evidence that the president of Venezuela made a pact with terrorists to traffic cocaine. American prosecutors also found payment lists, handwritten notebooks where Maduro personally noted who received how much money and why, names of Venezuelan generals with amounts beside them. Diosdado Cabello, 20 million. Vladimir Padrino, 15 million. Tarek El Aissami, 30 million. Nestor Reverol, 10 million. An accounting of the distribution of the spoils. Written proof of how Maduro distributed stolen money among those who kept him in power. In a separate safe, they found false passports. Not only Maduro's, false passports for his entire family. Venezuelan passports with false names. Nicaraguan passports. Cuban passports. Syrian passports. Maduro had escape plans, prepared identities for fleeing if the moment came, but he never arrived in time to use them. Agents also confiscated Maduro's and Cilia's personal phones, latest generation iPhones with encrypted messaging applications, WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal. FBI technicians are extracting all the messages. According to leaked sources, they found conversations between Maduro and Mexican drug traffickers, messages between Cilia and corrupt officials of the Venezuelan judicial system, photographs of bundles of money sent as proof of payments, videos recorded inside the presidential palace showing meetings with people who appear on American sanctions lists. One of the most impactful messages was sent by Maduro to Diosdado Cabello in 2019. It said literally, "We need to accelerate the shipments. The gringos are pressing. Move what you have stored before it is too late." Prosecutors interpret that message as a direct order to accelerate cocaine shipments before American sanctions completely blocked operations. Investigators also found keys to safety deposit boxes in foreign banks. Physical keys with engraved numbers corresponding to banks in Switzerland, Liechtenstein, and Singapore. Each key represents another safety deposit box that prosecutors are now tracking. Another hidden bank account, another hiding place for stolen money. In the master bedroom, they found something particularly grotesque. A personal notebook by Cilia Flores where she noted her luxury expenses. Hermès Paris, 60,000 euros. Cartier Geneva, 120,000 Swiss francs. Van Cleef Milan, 200,000 euros. Page after page of obscene expenses noted in her own handwriting, as if she kept a shopping diary, as if it gave her pleasure to document how much money she spent while her country was dying of hunger. Agents also confiscated artworks, paintings by Venezuelan artists that had disappeared from national museums during protests and blackouts, pre-Columbian sculptures that belonged to the country's cultural heritage. All stolen, all hidden in Maduro's private bunker. Some pieces were valued in the millions of dollars. Others were invaluable simply for their historical importance. In total, the complete inventory of what was confiscated at Fuerte Tiuna occupies more than 300 pages. Every object listed, every bank account documented, every transfer traced, every document photographed. Everything now forms part of the evidence that American prosecutors will present in the trial against Nicolás Maduro and Cilia Flores. The contrast is brutal, overwhelming, unbearable. While Maduro accumulated 17 tons of gold in an underground bunker, Venezuelans sold their wedding rings to buy food. While Cilia spent 60,000 euros on a bag in Paris, Venezuelan women gave birth in hospitals without light and without anesthesia. While Maduro drank $20,000 per bottle wine, Venezuelan children rummaged through garbage for food. While they flew in private jets, millions of Venezuelans walked hundreds of kilometers fleeing the country. 7 million Venezuelans abandoned their country between 2015 and 2025. 7 million people who fled from hunger, from violence, from despair. Maduro watched them leave from his climate-controlled bunker. He watched them die while he accumulated. He watched them suffer while he spent. And now everything has ended. The bunker is empty. The gold is confiscated. The accounts are frozen. The bags, the watches, the wines, the suits, everything is in the hands of American authorities. And Maduro and Cilia Flores are in 6-square-meter cells in Brooklyn, without their $1 million watches, without their $20,000 suits, without their $20,000 per bottle wine, without anything. Maduro wakes up every morning on a steel bed with an 1.5-inch mattress. He eats from plastic trays. He cannot choose what to eat. He cannot decide when to leave his cell. He cannot speak with Cilia, even if she is in the same building. He cannot touch her. He cannot see her. He is completely alone with the weight of what he did. Cilia wakes up to the same concrete walls, without her $300,000 bags, without her $5,000 shoes, without her $1 million jewels, without anything except a prison uniform and the certainty that she will never again live as she lived. Prosecutors have the evidence. They have the recordings. They have the documents. They have the testimonies. They have everything. And on March 17, 2026, the process begins that will determine whether Maduro and Cilia Flores spend the rest of their lives in prison. But real justice has already arrived. Not the justice of courts, the justice of contrast, of going from having everything to having nothing, of controlling a country to not being able to control even the moment when you leave a cell, of living surrounded by obscene luxury to living in 6 square meters of cold concrete, 17 tons of gold, $2 billion in bank accounts, 80 million in watches, 12 million in bags, 5 million in wines, all stolen while Venezuela was dying. And now Maduro and Cilia Flores have exactly the same as the millions of Venezuelans who fled the country with the clothes on their backs. Nothing, absolutely nothing, except that the Venezuelans who fled did so with dignity, with hope, with the desire to rebuild their lives elsewhere. Maduro and Cilia Flores fled from dignity decades ago, and now they have no hope. Only cells and time. A lot of time to remember everything they stole, everything they destroyed, all the lives they ruined while accumulating watches they never needed and drinking wine they never appreciated. This is the story of the most obscene luxuries of Nicolás Maduro, the luxury he built with the hunger of millions, the luxury he accumulated while his country emptied, the luxury that is now confiscated, frozen, documented and exposed before the world. Subscribe so as not to miss the continuation of this story. On March 17th, there is a key hearing. And when that happens, you are going to want to know what it meant, because this has only just begun. The evidence will be presented, the testimonies will be heard, and the world will know the complete magnitude of the looting that Nicolás Maduro executed for more than a decade. Meanwhile, he wakes up every morning in Brooklyn, in a cell, without gold, without watches, without wine, without cilia, completely alone with the certainty that he will never again live as he lived. And perhaps, just perhaps, that is the most perfect justice of all.